Kimberly, you had something to say.
Yes, I did. So we were like talking about trauma earlier, and yesterday I was kind of saying about, before I understood about counselling and stuff like that, what I kind of knew deep within myself, that because I'd been through all those different traumas and experiences, I knew there was something inside me that was strong, that I didn't know what to label it or what it was or anything. So when I went into domestic abuse and I did my training with domestic abuse and my counselling placement there, the other counsellors used to say, how come as all your girls come out and they're really happy, light and smiling? And I wasn't using any of the tools because I kind of had really disregarded them, because I really knew that what was inside me was inside them. But I don't know, it wasn't an intellectual level. So if we look at someone like they're broken, and that was like one of the issues with mum's mental health, is that there were so many doctors listening to traumas and then going, yeah, and kind of not seeing that actually it's not happening now. Do you know what I mean? It's over. It's not happening now. And so I kind of really got to see the power of that presence of love and truth, and us knowing what's deep within us. So for me, that really, it gave me a whole completely different way of looking. So this is even prior to the principles, that I just knew that space was where the important space is for us all. Do you know what I mean? And our deep knowing that. And when people were talking about energy earlier, when we know that, I am sure that we emit an energy that other people feel. And because there's like a feeling in it, there's a sense, because we're of that connection, that we're all connected. So people like kind of know when you're lying, or they know when you're not being authentic about, you know, if you say something you don't believe, you think they're always going to be broken, and you're going to admit that at a level, even if your words are saying one thing, the energy is going to emit that. And because I kind of feel that I truly, truly knew that deep inside, I think that's what did the transformational work that we work within. And, you know, when we have people come in and they're like, you know, they don't want to be here. And then we have like a 2-hour session and everything changes within it. And they're like, I can't believe that actually this is so simple and I feel this way now. You know, so and even throughout this time within domestic abuse increasing, you know, a lot of the people that we work with, they've made decisions that they wouldn't have made before. Do you know what I mean? So they called the police when they needed to. You know, they were able to kind of see what they really needed and what their children needed. And it really was that authentic space that they came into. Do you know what I mean? To be okay with everything that's, whatever thoughts you're kind of having, but you still come back into that place like Jen did. Do you know what I mean? Whereas all of a sudden that you're there and you're the observer of it and not no longer in it. You know, and then all of a sudden it makes sense to you to do whatever that next action is. And that next action isn't always for the police. For some people, that next action can just be whatever it is to them. And then that will make a massive difference, then leads to different, more, better decisions for them. So yeah, that's kind of just what I wanted to say, if that made sense.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Kim, love.
Kim's been doing incredible work down in Basildon and actually further afield than that, but with people experiencing domestic violence, people from low-income backgrounds. She's had all different kinds of projects happening. She's run them even when she hasn't had funding, and she does a lot of work, and it's always from her heart. So thank you, Kim.
Yeah, anybody in like Kim's area, get in touch. You know, or just get in touch with Kim. She does such fantastic work.
Thank you. Bless you, darlings.
on the chat. Thanks, Kim.
Nikki, you have your hand up.
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me okay. My internet's a bit crap today. So just kind of something that, you know, I've kind of been in this conversation for about 3 years, and I've just want to say a big thank you to you both, because this weekend has just been beautiful, and so I'm really very, very grateful, so thank you. But just little things like, it's kind of like pieces of a jigsaw that come together, and there was just something that I wanted to share because it seemed to fit with like at the beginning of the day we were speaking about health and then children. And so 4 years ago my daughter was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, And I didn't know anything about the three principles then, and I found it incredibly difficult, because if anybody here knows anything about Crohn's, it's completely unpredictable, uncontrollable. There isn't anything that you can do in order to prevent illness or create wellness. And because I was a complete control freak, I couldn't protect my daughter, I couldn't keep her well, there was nothing I could do, and I really struggled with that. And then what's kind of happened from then until now is I got a little taste of this conversation. I kind of struggled for a long time, and I started to see the wellness in me. And then, like, as time went on, I started to see the wellness in her. And what happened then is, like, my relationship with the disease changed, because I knew she was always okay. And I knew that whatever happened, we would always be okay. The most beautiful part of this, though, is that just before Christmas, she had a flare up, and we have to do these tests where they test their calprotectin levels. And her normal range for her is something between 50 and 100, and before Christmas they were 450. So all the consultants were kind of like, we need to put you on a liquid diet, we need to put you on steroids, we need to kind of get active in terms of medical intervention. And we were all just like, I'm not so sure about that, let's just see. And just last week she had the results back from some recent tests, and her levels are 85. And the consultants are completely baffled. They don't know why or how it's managed to do that. But the thing, the amazing thing that happened was that, sorry, bear with me. Lou, can you close the door, darling? Lou, close the door. It's the amazing thing that happened was that she just went, I love you. And in that moment, I knew that through kind of what you were talking about, this idea of collective consciousness, like through me knowing that she was okay, without ever really saying anything to her, she knew that she was okay. And something in that had kind of made her well. And just another thing that just came to me really, really quickly, I used to be a psychotherapist, despite my own craziness. And before that, I was a teacher in a primary school. So when I became a psychotherapist, I used to work with really young children, and lots of psychotherapists kind of don't work with really young children. But I loved it. I loved doing that work. Parents would come to me, and we've had this initial session, and they would talk about all the things that were wrong with the child and how broken they were, and how many people had told them that their children were broken. And I didn't know anything about the principles then, but what it occurred to me to do in the sessions was we used to play snakes and ladders and Ludo and draw and play with Play-Doh and tell jokes. And they would have like 3 or 4 sessions, and the parents would kind of come in and they would go, you know, I don't know what it is you're doing, but like they've just completely changed. And I used to kind of think, oh my God, I'm such a fraud, because like I'm not really doing anything. Oh my God, like this is, you know, I feel so bad. But what I see about it now is just that on some level, even then, before I had any of these 3 principle understanding, like it was innately in me, like I just knew they were okay. Before I had words for this, I knew it. I knew they were okay. And them just being with me, knowing that they were okay, helped them to see their okayness. And that was just all that was required. So yeah, I just wanted to share that really.
love that. You know, we often say to people, like Kate came to us, need you to fix my daughter. Need you to fix her. She's breaking down all the time. Kids are looking to their parents. We get born into this mad existence. We get born into this inexplicable existence. There isn't a map. We get born, we suddenly find ourselves in this body of senses. Wow. I can see, I can hear, I can feel. Oh, I've got this sense. I need something. Oh, food. Yeah, I need food. Oh, wow. And we start to go through this life, and we're thinking and we're thinking and we're thinking, and we're not aware. We can't really figure this stuff out. So who do we look to? We look to those who are closest to us, who happen to be our family, our parents, our carers, whatever. And I often say this to parents: if you have to find your own health within yourself before you can see it in anybody else. This is why you have to be selfish with this. You have to be selfish with this. You have to see this for yourself before you see it in other people. But the moment you see it in yourself, you see it in other people. It's instant. The two are one. It's instantaneous.
I loved how you described it. It was wordless, like your daughter picked up on that,
Yeah.
even though you never had to. You didn't say it. And I think I love in the early days around Sydney Banks. There's all kinds of transformations happened within relationships, with like mental health, all those kind of things. But also there was different physical transformations and healings that happened that don't get spoken about so much now. But apparently in the early days on Salt Spring Island, there was a lot of kind of miraculous healings and things that took place around him. And he knew that a shift in consciousness could change anything. And we put limits on it because, like you say, we're told by experts, but
It's just a belief.
Thank you. I loved listening to you.
Nikki, thanks so much, love. Yeah. Thanks for that.
That's okay, you're welcome. I loved what you said about the experts. I don't know if it's yesterday or the day before, about, you know, how that, you know, it's kind of made me chuckle, like, thoughts create feelings, create behaviors, and they're trying to like deal with the behaviors and the feelings, and it's gone.
Too late.
Yeah, I just love that. So yeah, thank you.
It's like dealing with the smoke
Yeah,
without addressing the fire.
yeah, yeah. Thank you both.
Thanks, Nick.
I was gonna say, I'd asked, I don't know if you want to do it, but I'd asked Dave at some point on one of our retreats. Dave was on a walk with someone and they were talking, and at some point in this conversation, Dave realised that they were having two very different conversations. And he was on the side of Grasmere, and he was like, what can I use to explain what I'm trying to speak about? And he's like, Grasmere. So he started speaking, and this diagram has kind of come from that moment. And I just asked him, I was going to get him to do it this morning, but just to share a little bit, because it seems quite nice to have a visual of this. And it kind of shows how innocently we get mesmerized by our creations. And I thought it was a nice visual to represent that.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time with this. But
Can people see that diagram?
can you see this? Claire, what does that say there?
Joy.
Yeah, all right, cool. If you see a spelling mistake, right, that's your eyes. They're malfunctioning. There's probably bloody tons of them. All right. I want to make a distinction between thought and thinking, because this for many people, I think when we're talking about thought, people think they know what it is. But I just want to put a question out right now. What is thought? What is thought? What is it? I remember when I was...
Energy.
Energy? What's energy?
Don't know. The life force.
What's that?
Just spirit.
What's that?
Intelligence behind all life.
What's that?
You cheeky bugger.
All
I'm muting again now.
these labels, and then we think we know what it is because we've created a label and given it an identity within our mind. Therefore, it appears like, because we've given something a label, it appears like we know what it is. It creates a character for it. We do that with people too. We create a character for them, and then we think we know who they are and what they stand for and what they mean. No, we've just created a character. We're not listening anymore. We're not in that open vastness of expanse where we can actually ultimately hear. We're too busy filtering through our beliefs. So I want to kind of, I remember I was talking with my friend and she was talking about, but Dave, what about this thought? What about that thought? What about this thought? What about that thought? I said, you and I are having two very different conversations here. And we're stood on the side of Grasmere, and this is where I was looking around, I was thinking, what can I use? I need a metaphor. Grasmere, perfect. Grasmere is a little lake probably bang in the middle of the Lake District. Beautiful little place. And I stood there, and I said to her, what do you see? She called Sasha. I said, she won't mind me mentioning her name. She called Sasha. She's fantastic. I love her to bits. Sash, what do you see here? She went, Grasmere. I said, yeah. What do you see on the surface? She said, waves. I said, all right. I said, Sash, tell me about the waves. What do you see in the waves? And these were some of the things she said. She said, well, they come and go. They appear to flow. They appear to be moving in a direction. They're always made of water. They appear different sizes, different strengths. Now, to the untrained eye, which I totally am, if you were to go down to Grasmere now and look at it now and go back tomorrow, you could say, looks just the same. But I can guarantee you one thing, the character of the surface, the wave pattern, has never existed as it does in this very present moment in its entire history. It's an entirely unique expression. Right now is entirely unique expression of wave patterns. It's never existed like it does now. And again now it's an entirely unique expression of Grasmere. I've since made this a bit bigger. Grasmere has now become an ocean because it's just a bit easier to describe, because if you really look at the oceans, they are infinite. You can sail around the world right back to where you started and go around again and again as many times as you want on the oceans of the earth. There's no end to it. No beginning and no end. And so we were talking about these waves. People are trying to fix their waves. Constantly trying to fix their waves. I'll put some waves up here for people. So I've got the wave of truth. True wave. I've got a false wave there. A money wave. A worry wave. A joy wave. A right wave. Where's me wrong? A wrong wave. A good wave. A past wave. A future wave. A problem wave. A bad wave. Suicide wave. Anxiety wave. Death wave. Put whatever you want on that, whatever kind of wave you want. people come to us with waves. Why a wave? Why am I talking about waves? Well, you could say that the character of the ocean is how it's showing up in the moment, given what the waves are doing. So sometimes we might go down to the sea and look out and you're like, wow, look at this. There's a photograph. Go and grab it quick. There's a photograph I'm just about to show you. It was when we were up in Scotland one time. Mum and Dad will pull it off. Mum and Dad were with us. We're at Port William. Was it Port William? Yeah, Port William. Now the character of the sea was like nothing I have seen before. It was aggressive. It was powerful. Are you winning? Staples are getting the better. Powerful. It was. Don't know if you can see that. Those are people's houses. There was a 90-something-year-old woman walking down here. I ran along and helped her through it. Her house had never been flooded in all the years she'd lived there. Port William on the Galloway coast. Sometimes the ocean can throw rocks, like the rocks which were on that road were just massive. Such power, such destruction. And then we went back the next day. You wouldn't even know that had happened if it wasn't for all the debris everywhere. It had calmed right down. The character of the ocean had calmed down again. Really calmed down. It's a mesmerizing thing. Is the surface of the water. And I've got a friend called Chris who's a deep sea diver.
I think Em's on actually.
Em, where are you? You on, love? Chris, I remember talking to Chris about this. This is Emma's husband, where if she's on, don't know if she's on. Hi, Em. Yeah, it's Emma's giving it thumbs up and waving. This is Emma's husband. I said to Chris, Chris, you know, when you get in the North Sea and you're going down on one of the rigs, what's it like? He said, well, I said, you know, it's cold, it's choppy, you get thrown about a bit. I said, what's it like when you get like 10 meters down? He said, it's totally still. It's totally still. Below the surface is total stillness. He said, sometimes I look up, and he said, and it's really interesting to know what's going on up there, but to be sat in this space and just of stillness and just watching all this turbulence take effect. He said, you don't move. You just sat in, what do they call it? Where you, my dad's going to be shouting this at the screen now. Where you sat in the water in just a stillness. Just suspended in the water. Down here is stillness. I said, you know, this is very much like the mind. You look at this, it's like 1 minute we're in this experience, then it collapses. The next minute we're in that experience, then it collapses. Then we're in this experience, collapses. Then we're in that experience, and it collapses. We are totally mesmerized by our waves. The waves of reality, the waves of experience that we go through. The wave of trying to find truth. What is truth? Where is it? Before it disappears in, and our mind has now created a new little wave. Perhaps it's a wave about the future. Whoa! Oh, I mustn't forget to buy some toilet rolls. Or what's going to happen in 10 days' time? What's going to happen what's 10 years' time going to look like? Oh, will COVID ever come to an end? all these waves that look so real and tantalizing, something that they come and go. Every single wave, no matter what we are experiencing, is always born of the same place. Like every single wave on the ocean, whether it be the slightest ripple or a tsunami, or that wave is made of water. Always made of the same thing. You know, time, another thing we could put up there, time is made of water. The water of the mind. Now, it doesn't look like this. You know, each wave in its own being, people go searching out the biggest waves if they like surfing. It's still the ocean. People like going to look at the waves. Some people like riding the waves. They're a mesmerizing thing. And we get mesmerized by our surface expressions of our waves. Whether that be depression, joy. We get mesmerized by these waves, and each one looks real. It looks like a separate thing. Each wave looks like a separate thing from the ocean. It looks like it's separate. No, it's just a creation of the same thing in all moments. A different expression of the whole. And ultimately what we end up with this problem is we are like an ocean that has now started to identify itself with its waves. We are like an ocean that identifies itself with its waves. It's forgotten it's the wave.
The ocean. The
ocean, sorry. It's forgotten it's the ocean. And now it's started to think it's the wave. This wave always comes up. This must mean something about me. I have the wave that I cannot possibly be happy. That is no more real than the wave of joy. That is no more real than the wave of money, food. And I said this to Mackie, to Paul, I think it's in the last retreat actually. Wave of I want to end this now is no more real than the thought of, as I said last time, what flavour yogurt do we want? It is exactly the same thing. It's born of the same place. It's like each is a wave off the ocean, but each has a different characteristic. Each wave has a different characteristic. It's that wave, or it's a ripple, it's still a wave. It's all the same thing. And when we start to identify with the waves, this is what is called ego. The character. Well, what's our character made from? It's made of thought. Oh no, it's my personality. Well, what's your personality made of? It's made of thought. What's the character of the ocean like? Well, it's whatever the waves are showing up like. What's the personality of the ocean like? Well, it's whatever the waves are showing up like. It's aggressive, it's angry, oh, it's calm, it's peaceful, it's tranquil. It's still, moderate. When we start thinking about our thinking, people become afraid of their thinking, and what they often do is they go to war with their thinking. Shouldn't think that, don't think that. This is a terrifying thought. What does this mean about me? That's like walking out into the ocean, getting our hands, standing in the wave and going, stop being turbulent, water, get back down. That's what we do. We go and start trying to pummel a wave back into the sea, thinking that somehow we're going to flatten it out and it's going to make the sea calm. No, it creates more turbulence. At some point, we have to recognize that no matter what the experience, it's always coming from one place. It's all the same thing. showing up in a different way, as a different expression. No matter what, you can put anything on these waves, anything whatsoever. Even the yeah, but what about this is a wave. That's a wave too. But what about this problem? That's a wave too. This person I was speaking to was, the reason why we were having two very different conversations was because she was wanting to talk to me about her waves, something that comes and goes, something that appears to flow, ultimately always made of the same thing, but they appear different. They come with different intensities and strengths. They only ever exist in the moment. I said, the reason why you and I are having two very different conversations is because you want to talk to me about something that is illusory, like the character of the ocean, something that changes continuously. I want to talk to you about the true me, the true I, the true self. You could call that true self yeah, no, it's going to. You call that true self the power of thought, the power from which thoughts emerge. Spirit. So, pure consciousness. God. Source. Whatever you want to call it. Mind. This is what we are. We are the infinite creative force, mistaking ourselves for what we create. Like the ocean mistaken in itself for a wave. This is what everybody is. This is the game of life. When somebody finds themselves, all they do for a briefest of glimpses, or however long it takes, they find themselves in the expanse of openness and infinite possibility. To realize, I'm not that. I am not what I am thinking. I am not what I am feeling. I am that creates the character. And it creates the character in the moment. You look at your character, it cannot really be pinned down. Oh, I'm an anxious person. But when you're not being anxious, where's your anxiety? It doesn't exist. It's back in the whole, in the infinite. It's gone back to where it came from. You come from the light. You are the light. You're going back to the light. So I just wanted to make a distinction between when we're talking about the power of thought and thinking. Thinking is what is created from the power of thought. If you can find the awareness that you are not what you think or experience, and realize that all experience is born of the same place, no matter what, you will know that you can create anything. You find yourself in the most powerful position in the universe because you are that. The ocean's free to create any size wave, any shape, any form. It's as easy for the wave to create, the ocean to create a beautiful wave as it is a destructive wave. It's easy.
I think I loved it when you spoke to, when Dave spoke to Chris and had used this example and being able to ask a deep sea diver, like, what is it like? And the way that he described just being like suspended in the water, looking up and being able to see the turbulence. it kind of reminded me of how often people describe when they come across the principles, they seem to get more of an observer of their experience and less kind of thrown around by experience. So it's almost like we get to observe it from a different place when we know that we're not that. And so much before, we were caught in this, trying to fix this, trying to make it different, trying to push down our waves, identifying as those kind of waves. And the ones that were bigger seemed to be the ones that were more true. And I think it's that stillness, that peace is from which everything emerges. And that's what we are. Mm. But this stuff is mesmerizing. In the same way, looking at the surface of the ocean can just be mesmerizing. It's beautiful, it's stunning, it seems important. Our reality, our creations look so true and real.
The majority of time, when you go to the sea, that's all you can see is what the surface is doing.
And that's what we've spent all of our time really in psychology and kind of self-development, is looking at the character, not looking at the source. And the character's ever changing. It sort of speaks again to that, the man that built his house on sand, completely shifting, moving. It's not going to be stable. And if we try and identify with some of these, we will feel unstable. We will feel at sea. But it was so interesting when he said just 10 meters down there was stillness. And for us, it can feel like we've got so much trauma or so much going on. That stillness seems so far away. But in that same way, the stillness hasn't gone anywhere. But we've just identified with the storm and not the stillness. Like I know that throughout time, they said one of the beautiful sayings is, I am. Before we add anything on, that's what we are. The I amness.
Apparently that's why Jesus was crucified. He said, before Abraham, I am. And that was taken that, oh, you think you come before Abraham? And he was saying, no. Before Abraham, the form, I amness is all there is. I am is the true state of being. It's that before it has got attached a word or a label or an identity to it. I am happy, I am joyful, I am sad, I am grief-ridden, I am upset, I am hungry. The last bit is an illusory thing. I just want to say one more thing, if that's all right. And then,
yeah, then I'd love to open it up to everyone.
Totally. But the people come and they say, but I have these thoughts for so long. I've had this thought for so long, it must be more real. And I remember one man said that, and I took him to the window and I said, look out of our window, and it looks out into a woodland. And I said, do you see that big oak tree? It's about 200 years old, that. Do you see that tiny sapling down there? It's about 7 years old, that. Stop it. Which one's more real? Which one's more real? Is the big oak tree more real because it's been around for 200 years? More real than the 7-year-old little sapling? Or are they all the same? What's more real, the seed or the oak tree? The acorn or the oak tree? Which one's more real? It's all the same thing. Sorry.
No, I was just laughing because we had a friend come and stay. What's it?
Florence.
Florence, yeah. And she said, why in Cumbrian do they finish the sentence with the same word they started it with? And we're like, what do you mean? She goes, that's good, that.
It's good, that.
So we don't know. It's like to add in lots of extra words. Like when Amanda said to you, why do you say how come that is? Why don't you just say why? So that was what my sniggle was. But I'd love to hear from Kate. You've got your hand up.
Douglas.
Oh no, I was just going to say, when I was with you guys, when I actually started listening, which took a little while, but and you told me about the wave, and do you remember what I heard? You know, me and my metaphors, but it was that because we do quite a lot. We used to, before kids, do quite a lot of diving, and it felt like when you go diving and you're in the boat on the surface, and there's always so much stuff going on, and it sometimes depends what mood you're in. It sometimes depends on how much sleep you've had, you know, because sometimes I'd be in the boat and I'd be really anxious about, you know, whether I've got enough oxygen or just stuff. And, you know, Pete would be in a different place. He'd be, you know, quite calm. Or, you know, sometimes the tanks would feel really heavy, or your wetsuit would feel really uncomfortable. And there was always stuff going on the surface. And then, but every time that you'd go into the water, and 100% of the time you knew this would happen, you'd sink down and there'd just be this calm, and you're weightless, and you just are in a completely, whatever's been going on the surface, you just leave it behind. And it's just this feeling of complete oneness, complete, I don't know, I mean, it was just, it would always take my breath away, but it would always be the same. And now I've found, and I remember that came to me as soon as you talked about it, because I thought that's how I feel when I'm like under the water, and you can look up on the surface and you know all the other stuff's going on, but there's this other space. And now that I've come, you know, just sunk deeper and deeper into this understanding, it's like, you know, I always talk about this like reflective space, and it's just sort of, we don't have to go diving to find this calm under the water. It's always there, when, you know, but for our thinking. And when our thinking quietens down, it's like, you know, I used to think it was just sometimes there, but now I know it's always there. You know, when your thinking calms down and you sort of just look in that other direction and you just stop for a moment, then that, I sort of call it the Aladdin's cave now, because that's where all the goodies are. That's just where you feel inspired, and you feel sort of the truth behind life. And that's the space that is just growing and growing within. And that's what I saw the first time that you talked about the wave and the waves and the ocean when I was with you guys.
Beautiful, thanks, Kate. I think that speaks to that. You found, for a moment, you look past the illusion of the waves. Georgia's a problem, how are we going to fix this, blah, blah, all the turbulence of the surface. For a moment, you saw past your turbulence and you found truth. And it's interesting, the moment people find truth, they find a wisdom that knows how to guide them, knows how to bring an answer to their perception of a problem. Because you really look at it, I wrote problem up there as a wave. Problems are waves, they're not real. They're only a problem, and the moment we find the solution, which is also a wave, it's no longer a problem, it's only a temporary manifestation. Their thoughts.
Peter.
Hiya. I love that, Dave, because I love the ocean, and I love the fact that we're part of the ocean, and just feel every time I'm at the seaside, get there and get in there. That's me. Yeah, I'm there, even when it's really cold. There's a couple of things. There's hey?
The extra tight Speedos on that you wear.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you for that. There's a poem that occurred to me this morning that when people were talking about struggle, and it goes like this: a young boy came across a butterfly cocoon and brought it into his house. He watched over the course of hours as the butterfly struggled to break free from its confinement. It had managed to create a small hole in the cocoon, but its body was too large to emerge. It grew tired and became still. Wanting to help the butterfly, the boy snipped a slit in the cocoon with a pair of scissors. but the butterfly was small, weak, and its wings crumpled. And the boy explained expected the butterfly to take flight, but instead it could only drag its undeveloped body along the ground. It was incapable of flying. The boy, in his eagerness to help the butterfly, had stunted its development. What he did not know was that the butterfly needed to go through the process of struggling against the cocoon to gain strength and fill its wings with blood. It was the struggle that made it stronger. And I think, you know, people were saying that in a whole variety of ways, weren't they, this morning or this afternoon, early this afternoon, that this idea of a struggle makes us stronger and that we can learn stuff from that. And it just occurred to me. And then the other thing is that the wave thing, I think, you know, I'm a serial anxiety lover and an anxiety junkie, really. So I know that one. And one of the things I do when I'm working with children is that I'll say to them, okay, so write down some feelings. So they'll write down joyfulness, happiness, anger, fear, anxiety, etc., etc. And then I say to them, so if you're going into a feeling shop, which ones would you buy? And just tick off the ones that you buy. So they'll go for the happy ones, they'll go for the joyful ones, the peaceful ones. They'd leave off the anxiety and so on. And I've done that with children, I've done that with adults. And there was one child who was 10. And I asked him the question, so which would he tick off? And he said, well, all of them. Of course, he said, because it's that makes us human. And that leads me into my second poem, and then I shut up. And so I just bowed to him greatly. And I love this one. This being human is a guest house every morning in your arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if there's a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty of its furniture, still treat gently. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And I love that, and I remember it sometimes and welcome in that anxious feeling that I think I don't like, and other times I forget. When I remember, it's joyful, really, because it goes of its own accord. And like that, I love that, what you were saying about flapping around on the top of the ocean, trying to flatten the waves, really. You're on a hiding for nothing for that one. So just let it have you and have its way with you, and then it will move on. And now I'm going to go back into mute.
Thank you.
Cheers, Pete.
Liz, you have to unmute again now, Pete.
Right. Again, going back to what people were talking about this morning, I suddenly remembered a couple of poems that I thought spoke to what we were talking about. And I came across these when I was about 15. The little book was given to me by a great aunt. And I remember reading through this little book and loving some of them and getting really, really cross with one or two of them, because I thought the poet didn't know what she was talking about, okay? And then, so as I got older, the truth of this poem has spoken to me louder and louder, particularly in terms of the three principles. So the poems are by a poet called Ella Wheeler Wilcox, and it's called Whatever Is Best. I know as my life grows older and mine eyes have clearer sight, that under each rank wrong somewhere there lies the root of right, that each sorrow has its purpose, by the sorrowing oft unguessed, but as sure as the sun brings morning, whatever is best. I know that each sinful action, as sure as the night brings shade, is somewhere, sometime punished, though the hour be long delayed. I know that the soul is aided, sometimes by the heart's unrest, and to grow means often to suffer, but whatever is best. I know there are no errors in the great eternal plan, and all things work together for the final good of man. And I know when my soul speeds onward in its grand eternal quest, I shall say as I look back earthward, whatever is best.
Nice.
Oh, I love that. I don't think you've ever read me that.
Who wrote that?
It's not. It's just that, as I say, when I was younger and I came across that, because of all the trauma that was going on in my life at the time, I thought that was rubbish. How could whatever's happening to me now be best for me? How's it going to turn out really good? But as I say, as you got older and I look back on all the different things that have happened, you do realise that at the time that something that seems so insurmountable and so sad and so worrisome, and then you move on and then you look back and you go, if that hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened and that wouldn't have happened. But at the time, you can't see it. So one of the other things that I've realised a lot more is what you were both talking about earlier, is acceptance. I mean, that is something, Dave, as Dave will tell you, that I am very hard at times, because I've got lots of hard questions that whenever he comes down, I'm beginning with these questions, wanting an answer. But I do know that when you're in a time of trouble, the more you resist it, the more you try to get those thoughts out of your head, the louder the thoughts become. And if you can just accept that, yes, I'm feeling really shit now, and I feel awful, and just accept that place that you're in without thinking. So it's the thinking about the thinking that can cause a problem. If you just acknowledge to yourself, yeah, I'm feeling really rubbish at the moment, and just keep saying and say to yourself, but I know it will pass. And it always does. Because before, I'd be feeling like that, and then trying to give myself an example. So why am I feeling like that? Was it because he said that? Was it because she said that? Was it because the kids did this? I'd constantly be trying to find a reason to explain the feeling that I was having. And I no longer do that. I just go to bed at night feeling perfectly okay. And I can get out of bed in the morning, I'm in the shower, and I know I'm not feeling as good as I did the night before. Now, instead of trying to work out why I'm feeling not so good, I just have my shower, get dressed, go down. And most of the time, that feeling has moved on, like the waves that Dave was talking about, because I don't give it any energy. When I do give it energy and get caught up in it, then I get caught up in the turbulence. But I've learned more and more that if you just allow that feeling to come, it will stay for however long it's going to stay, but it will go much more quickly if you don't give it any energy.
Love that, Liz.
Thank you.
And I think you've spoken to something else about this. The ocean cannot be destroyed. You can't destroy the ocean. It's unbreakable. You can throw a nuclear bomb at it. Straight back together again. Can't destroy the ocean. You can take anything. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Pete. Love you both.
Anybody else? Questions, comments, observations, poems, songs?
Talents.
Lula.
So yeah, I messaged you earlier because I after my big kind of moment yesterday where I still feel like I'm reeling from that a little bit. I woke up at 5:30 this morning and wrote something, and it's kind of from what came yesterday for me, and so I was going to read it if that's okay. Although I nearly decided, like, I wish I'd never said anything. Maybe I shouldn't do this. So I've had a lot of thinking about this. So, but I've decided I'm going to do it anyway, because I remember what Lisa said yesterday, that you never know if you're going to read it. It might be somebody Might be right for somebody to hear it, so I'll stop waffling. So it's kind of it's called Wake Up Sweetheart, Wake Up. And it's my words to life and then life's words to me. So it's kind of starts one way and then kind of goes into life talking to me. So it's so weird because I so want to say I don't write poetry. This is not what I do, but I just wrote this. I so want to dive into that, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not going to say that. Ignore what I've said. Okay. You're here again. You look exciting and fun. Shall I come and play? Let's run, let's run. You feel good to be around. I love to play, to dream and bound. I know you're here to wake me up, to remind me to give a fuck. But here I feel safe and sound, living my life underground. I'm here with everyone else doing what we do, keeping it safe, even if it's not true. I'm hiding my light just in case it shines too bright in everyone's face. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I love to live, to feel alive, to thrive and live outside the lines, to dance and create, to be black, to be white, to dance with the devil and love with the light. But what if they can't cope and if it doesn't please and they say no? I might not fit. Sorry, I start again. I might not fit. They don't want you to stand out. It's safer to stay here, to whisper, not shout. But life is short and my meaning is loud, waiting to burst out from beyond these clouds. So wake up, be who you are, live in the now, you'll travel so far. You'll see all the beauty that life has for you, the freedom, the wisdom, the love. It's not new. It's been waiting for you, patient and calm. Start that again. It's been waiting for you, patient and calm, knowing when you're ready, it will embrace you with both arms.
Thank you for getting over yourself and reading.
Still feeling it though, still feeling it, but I did it, so
Wow, Beck.
I don't care.
Beautiful. Can you send us a copy of that?
Yeah.
Please?
Yeah.
Thanks, God, that is beautiful. Thank you for dragging your ass out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning for us. Lula. Beautiful, Lula. That was really beautiful. I love poetry when people, there's something about poetry. When you find yourself reading poetry, or writing poetry, my apologies, you're not there. There's a movement that's taking place through you that's just bringing you knowledge. And I love the way that poetry really doesn't make, the words don't make like everyday logical sense. They don't fit into the narrative of the manifested, really. They're abstract, they're out there. But there's a part within us that feels the truth of the abstract out there-ness of it all. I love that. It is an abstract out there-ness of life. You can't pin it down. Well, Lula, that was fantastic. Thank you.
Hi Dave, Jen.
Amar.
Just to get back to the feather thing, while you were talking, I felt this pricking in my trousers, and there was a feather in my trousers. 2 minutes later, I was sorting out your washing, and there was a feather fell on top of it. And then 10 minutes after that, I was just looking out the window, and a feather fluttered right down the window. So there's plenty of feathers about today.
Mum, stop putting the hens down your pants, Mum. I told you about this. You know how many we've lost now. You said it was the fox. Thanks, Mum.
Flick.
Felicity.
You're doing it old school style, putting your actual hand up.
Yeah, because I don't know where the bloody button is.
Oh, I'm so retro.
I'm like, can you see me? I just wanted to share something I've been thinking about a lot since Dickens spoke. So Dickens shared how he was speaking to the 10-year-old girl, and he said to her, like, where does fun come from? And that led to her thinking about, like, fun comes from thought, right? And I've been thinking a lot about how when we feel good, we're having good thoughts and they feel good. And it's kind of, I feel like it's a signal to keep going in that direction. It feels good that way, go that way. And when we have a thought that feels bad, it's like okay, don't keep going down this path. Like, leave it alone, or look at it differently, or leave, or whatever. So our emotions are like such a good compass telling us which way to go. And I was just thinking, like, well, who sorted them out? I feel like all the emotions were put in a box and someone sorted them, going like, yeah, that's good, that's bad, that one's going to feel good, so that's going to make them carry on going. This one's going to feel bad, so this one's going to make them stop. And like each thought, when we have a thought, it gets an emotion with it. And it feels bad, we're going to stop. And I was like, well, who kind of like decides which sensation or feeling to attach to which thought? And that's where I feel like mind or wisdom comes in. It's like, this thought's bad for them. This thought is not how their inner being or wisdom is thinking about it. So we're going to make them feel bad, and that's going to make them stop. And I just feel like that's never something that we could have come up with on our own, with our thinking brains. We could never have come up with a precise way of sorting all the different thoughts and feelings and emotions that we have. Something deeper is doing that for us and giving us the greatest tool ever to decide what to do and what not to do, once we understand how that works. And Dickens like really made me think about that. And I just thought, like, wow, that's so cool. Because if I had to sort all of these thoughts on my own without any emotional sensation or feeling attached to it, and had to sort everything out on my own, I'd be screwed. So yeah, it's great that we have wisdom telling us which way to go by being like, oh, if it feels good, keep going. If it feels shit, stop. Or rethink. So yeah, that's what I've been thinking a lot about the last couple of days.
Can I question that?
Yeah.
Is that right? When I've worked in prison, I've met lads in there who they love beating people up. They love it.
Yeah, carry on.
A great sense of enjoyment from it. They'd openly tell you, they'd smile as they're telling you, they'd look you in the eye and smile and tell you, I just love kicking the fucking shit out of people. I've met those people. There's people who, that program is at the Serpent, based on a true story of the man who got enjoyment from poisoning people. Yeah, I know drug addicts feel good when they get the drugs in their hands. Or when they finally get the money to buy the drugs, they feel good. It feels good.
Okay, so I did think about that as well. And I'd love to know what you think, but where I came to on that was we often have like a fake high, which might be like an instinct high, like a gut reaction, like revenge might actually feel quite good. But I think once you know what peace feels like and you settle down and you're tuning into how you feel about something in that space, that's the true compass. If you're, so it's kind of the difference between like a gut reaction, which might be very like fight or flight, instinctual, but not really deep wisdom, more like a knee-jerk reaction or conditioning. But when you settle, you know, if I stabbed someone 2 days later and I settle, I might still have a fake high, or I might have settled and be like, ah, shit, I feel a bit bad about that. But we need to be able to settle before we can truly tell how we feel about something. Otherwise, we might still be in that fake high space. And I could be wrong, but I feel like anyone that's been beating people up and enjoying it has not settled into how their deep wisdom feels about it.
I agree with you.
They're in that fake high mode.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Cool.
People, we go chasing it. It boils back to that question: what are you looking for? You know, and you won't find any truth in the form, because one person's form of what's good is the next person's form of what's bad. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of going out shooting animals for sport and killing beings for sport. I stopped being a tree surgeon because I didn't want to kill any more trees. I don't want to. I've got mates who are tree surgeons. I've got no judgment of them. They're still my mates. I love them dearly. I don't question the job. To them, it's what they want to do. There's no truth in the form. I love what you're saying there, Flick. I love that. It's like somebody who does happen to stumble upon the vastness of life knows this. Who was it who said, prayer ceases when you find something more excellent? Some mystic, some Christian mystic said, prayer ceases when something excellent. And what he's talking about is that exists within yourself. The moment you find that within yourself, you stop praying for happiness and joy. You find you are it. And therefore, it's like all the things that you've gone in search for, all the action you've taken to go in search of this happiness and joy, it starts to quieten down because you find that space within yourself, that you find that is what you are. You are that.
Well, I was going to say, in some ways, like the feelings are like a wake up. Because I used to feel really bad about being around lots of people. So I thought that meant don't do it. But then I started to realise our feelings are a gauge to, I don't often use the term so much anymore, but how outside in we're being. How much are we seeing duality? So our feelings can wake us up to how lost in thought we are, how lost in this idea of an outside reality creating a good feeling or a bad feeling. So I think it's a different discriminator, I think, in a way, when we recognise that our feelings are information about our mind rather than about the world. And I think, like you say, you then drop into that still, peaceful place, and then we're more discerning with where we go with what we act on and what we don't. But I think it was when I realised, oh, just because this feels really scary doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. Whereas before, scariness meant don't do it, don't talk to people, don't do groups, don't do this. But I think I'm glad you asked Flick that question or mentioned the guys in jail, because then how you described it makes a lot of sense. Like, where in consciousness are we when we're making that decision? And I think when we do touch on that place, there's a wisdom or a knowledge that's there, that exists.
Yeah, like what I've noticed now is when I feel bad, it's because I'm thinking about it the wrong way. Like my inner being or my soul wisdom thinks about this very differently. So like with health problems, if I get stuck and I'll be like this forever, I feel bad. And I'm like, oh, I feel bad. That's because I'm thinking about this the wrong way. It's like, that's the signal to me now. I'm using it more as data now than something to get really tangled up in. It's cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Anybody
Thanks,
else?
Flicks, love.
Paul.
Backy.
I need to apologise before I start because I'm not in a nice place at all, and just since last night. So I'm getting really confused. I think I've got it in. I've dipped my toe into the world of the three principles through you guys, which I'm eternally grateful for. But I think because the more I've known now, the harder today is. So I stole money from the house of the people who I cared for from the most, from Claire, and that has been I've been taken away from what I love and care about in life for the most, and I'm struggling so much. I thought I kind of got it last week where I was like, yeah, if Claire's suffering, she's living in that moment, and you need to look after yourself, Paul. And I'm finding like today, last night and today so difficult to where it's really wanting to take us back to drug use last night. And I thought, right, no, just get yourself out for a run and like push yourself to take your mind off it and take away that negative energy. So I ran till I threw up last night. And then I woke up this morning and I thought, God, I've got to sit on this FaceTime with people. And I'm in such a negative place about myself that I'm not going to be able to listen to people. And if I'm brutally honest, people's stories of like love and kindness, and in my head I'm thinking, God, I wish they'd shut the fuck up, because it's really fucking pissing us off that everything else is so perfect in the world and I'm doing this to me. And I just don't know how I have to ride out this negative self-destruct path that I feel I'm on today. And I know it's just a thought. I totally get that. And I want to use drugs today, and I've sat through this day of listening to people, and I thought it'll make it all like easier, and it's not. And I said to Claire that I wanted to speak, and I don't know how to. And Claire's actually pestered us and said, Paul, like she's actually rang us, and I'm bursting like in tears. And I'm saying, Claire, I can't fucking speak. I can't speak, love. And everyone else has been brave and they've shared things. So I thought, right, I need to like fucking sort myself out and speak, and something might happen from it, or it might not. And I would like to say speaking's going to make us feel better, but it hasn't.
I love you, lad.
And I just don't know where. I don't know where today's taken us.
Fucking hell.
But it just doesn't feel nice.
I'm proud of you. I am so proud of you, man. Dude, first of all, I want you to acknowledge one big thing. You listening to me? You listening, big lad? When was the last time you had the real urge to take drugs and you didn't? Apart from that.
5 months ago.
Right. Well done. Well done, dude. Massive respect. You did it. You did it. You did it by yourself. You did it. You got through it on your own. You did it. Nobody else. You did it. I want you to acknowledge that fact. That's beautiful, mate, and that means the world. It means the world to me. I'm sure it means the world to other people as well. Massive respect. You double-hard, brave bastard. Proud of you. I remember being with Jen one time, dude. And she said, we've been out, I think you mentioned this not so long ago, we went out for a walk and it had been pissing it down all day, like proper. We're down at Pete and Lizzie's and we're walking around the village and it had been so heavy all day. raining, thunderstorm. Ground was saturated. And Jen said, we walked out.
Took Rusty.
Took Rusty out, didn't we? And that evening, you couldn't believe the evening. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. The whole storm had passed. And you couldn't believe. You looked at the day and you're like, well, this is in forever. There's no way. Look how heavy this sky is. You couldn't even see the trees at the bottom of the garden. Look how heavy this sky is. It looked permanent. I remember we were walking around and Jen went, can you believe this day today? This evening, given today, given what the weather's done today. No, it's unbelievable, isn't it? And then I remember you said something like, what did you ask?
I said, God, it's like when you're in a storm in your mind, when you feel like absolute shit, why does it feel like there isn't anything else, that it's never going to end? And I think you just said to me, because there is only the moment.
That's all you've got. That's all there is. There's just that in the moment. It's your everything in that moment.
I think also I wanted to share, like, it's been the fact that you've acknowledged that some other people are sort of sharing beautiful stories, but you're feeling like shit. It shows that the feeling of beauty doesn't come from this call or this webinar.
Yeah.
It comes from within. And I know that there's been other times you've felt like this, and it's felt permanent and immovable, and like there's never going to be anything else. And then you've snapped out of it and you've felt connected and love again. And I think that's the thing. We have to learn this for ourselves. Like, this isn't an anesthetic. It's not going to stop us feeling. But like Dave was saying, like, respect that normally you try and use a substance to numb that. Whereas at the moment you're having to feel it. And I've heard some of the things you've seen. You've shared different, and it can feel like we've lost something, or it's covered up right now with a load of noise. Yeah. And I've got such a deep respect for you for putting your camera on and still being here and not just laughing it all off. And
we love you, man. You're an inspirational human being to us, dude. You are facing one of life's challenges in the comfort of your own bedroom. You see where the challenge lies. You challenge. They lie in our mind, not in the world. If from the comfort of your own bedroom you can drive yourself mad, it's within it. Sometimes it's a patience game. I go into those places, dude. Sometimes I'm in them for a couple of weeks, like just not feeling really disconnected from life. I know that, but I only kind of feel disconnected from life because I know there's something else. When I didn't know there was something else, wow, life was shite. But when you get that glimmer of there is something else, you have something to kind of be aware of. You know the temporariness of it. Always temporary. It's always, always, always temporary. Always. And sometimes that's all we need to know.
And Paul, can you see all the comments coming in? I don't know if you know how to. Can you see the chat box? Oh, good.
Paul looks like the fella off the song Jump Around.
It doesn't say that. Just ignore anything that comes out with it.
No, proud of you, dude. Massive respect, dude. You know, and the other beautiful thing about this, Kim, I'm going to come to you now. The other beautiful thing about this is you get to learn. We learn. It's not by mistake that we learn.
I really quickly see it. I can see how blue the sky is. I've had the laptop on the window most of the day because I couldn't face the screen because I was crying so much. And I've only just looked out the window. Just a big thank you to everyone. And your words didn't mean shit all day.
It's funny. Paul and Claire did come and visit us before all the lockdown happened. They were supposed to be coming again, and Paul was going to help us a bit more with our van and things when we're allowed. And we just said, "You're part of our family now. You're not going to get rid of us." So even if he didn't get back to a text or anything, we're like, "We'll just hound you." That's what you do with family. So.
Good lad, big lad.
So for the wrath of the Kendall Mafia.
I'm right, man.
Kimberly.
Cheers, Mackie, lad.
Oh, bless you. I love Paul. I love that you did that, Paul, that you kind of shared, because that's really being real, isn't it? But what I wanted to say was that, you know, like that fella Jesus that was up on the cross, do you know what I mean? And he was like hanging off and there's blood and, you know, things sticking out of him. And he was going, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." And I was like, Jesus, like they're all like doing all these nasty things. What the hell is he talking about? I didn't get it. Then much later, I kind of realised what he was kind of saying. And I think it's for all of us and about forgiveness is that we can beat ourselves up for what we didn't know before. And we can do stuff that, you know, we kind of think, you know, at the moment you don't think about it. Oh, I've got myself in all sorts of shit, you know. But I kind of get to the point where I kind of see that what Jesus was really saying, and I'm not a religious person at all, but, you know, God and all that, I had a bit of thing about the Bible, you know, they're talking about women being like spare ribs, and I'm like, so what am I, sweet and sour, barbecue, hickory, what's going on? So I couldn't relate to this stuff, do you know what I mean? I was just like, no, that's just not right, man. But later, I started to see the depth of different things that were said, do you know what I mean? And I'm sweet and sour most of the time. You know, but sometimes, you know, a little bit this or a little bit of that, but we're all that. So when we're like beating ourselves up and we're thinking about forgiveness and we think, oh, we've got to be these really perfect people and everything else, I'm telling you, Paul, whatever you share and whatever you're learning now, you'll take this and you will light someone else's world up because of it. Do you know what I mean? So it's about really kind of not beating yourself up, you know, seeing... You know, we've got to forgive ourselves for shit. Do you know what I mean? We didn't plan it that way. It's just sometimes how it was. You know, so I just want to say to you, thank you for your bravery. Because actually, when everyone's talking about all the lovely stuff, and there's a lot of people that can feel that way. So I'm just really honouring you for being who you are, and I just think you're amazing. So lots of love to you. Right, guys, that's it.
You just nearly killed me with the spare ribs comment.
Ribs, I like that. Pictured you as a sticky rib.
Anybody
Beautiful,
else?
Kim. Thanks, love.
Hi.
Hey, Pandy lad.
Hey. I'm wondering if you could say something around hope.
If we could.
Yeah. I think for me, hope was kind of absent for a long time. And that made everything more black and more unbearable. And then when hope started to creep back in again, my experience, you know, there was more of a lightness that came back in again. And I don't know. Just suffering is more bearable when we have hope, I think. And when we do feel that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't really know what I'm saying, but I just wonder if you have any thoughts around that at all, around hope and hopelessness.
One thing that I do notice about hope is that it's based on a time that doesn't actually truly exist. It's based in an illusion. Hope's always based in a future.
And hopelessness.
Yeah, and hopelessness. They're both based in futures. You know, if we're living in hope, it's living in the. It's living it's living out of the moment. It's living in lostness. Hope's a beautiful thing, don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful thing. But it's always based in time, in a future. If that individual can let go of the future, they won't need to have hope. They can live in the moment, they can live in the present. I remember my sister ringing me up one day, and you even met my sister. She's deep. I remember one day she phoned me up and her dog wasn't well. She had no hope, and she was sat in a caravan, or perhaps she was hoping he would be well. I don't know. I remember one day she rang me up and she said, "I don't know what I'm going to do when he's gone." And she was beside. I haven't seen my sister look like that for years. Absolutely beside herself. And so I ran down to a caravan and I ran in and I curled up on the sofa with her and we cuddled and I just held her for a bit, and eventually she started to speak and she said, "I just don't know what I'm going to do when he's gone." I was like, "Oh, okay. Lise, come on, Lise." She started to look up. "Lise, I just want you to know, he's there by the fire. He's here now. You don't need hope when he's here now. You can have him now." And she slithered off the sofa and she went up and cuddled with Ben. She cuddled him. Need for hope in that moment because there was presence. And I remember she came out of that suffering. I remember her saying to me, "Wow, I've been so lost in time. I've been so lost in the future."
Thinking there's a book called Beyond Beliefs, and I think Elsie speaks about this. And I kind of, when you ask the question and listening to Dave speak, it's almost like sometimes if we've been so dark, just to have a glimmer of hope is kind of what keeps us going. And we have a belief in wellness, or we have a belief in wholeness. We might not feel it, but we have a belief. It gives us a glimmer. And then I think at some point we go beyond belief and we realise the wholeness is here now, even if we're lost in the storm. So I think sometimes I know a lot of people who have kind of been introduced to the principles, before they really sort of heard it, it just gave them hope. It gave them a glimmer. It gave them a sense that maybe change is possible. And then I think once we start to change, we recognise we were always all right. But that's how I see hope. It's almost like if we've been so dark and so lost, and then suddenly you see a tiny light, and you kind of head towards that, and then at some point, I don't know, you realise the light was actually in the mirror and you were the light. It was always there. But I think it is a beautiful thing. But like Dave says, like when we truly see what's taking form in the moment is built and born of the same place, is the wholeness, isn't broken, nothing. I think Sue and Bernie put on the conference in the northeast of never broke, nothing lacking, never broken. I can't remember what it's called. It was something along those lines. Sue, help me out here. What was your conference called?
Exactly what you said.
Nothing lacking, never broken. And I love that, because we can feel that there's something lacking, but there isn't. Austin.
Yeah, I think so. The stories of hope thing is super powerful. I think for me, it's been massive in my life. But what always made me laugh when I look back on those stories of hope was that all I was listening to was stories of other people whose thinking changed. You know, and you're looking at them, and you know, for me, yeah, I've had probably 2 or 3 massive waves in my life. You know, one of them was when my son was in hospital, in psychiatric hospital, you know, and the doctors were very much, he's broken, you know, he's never going to be out of there. And I listened to loads of stories from Bill Pettit of hope that were amazing. And I learned to take the time to just quieten down. Somebody was talking earlier about looking after their kid, and you know, it's so hard to be strong for them and things. And I learned I didn't need to be strong. I just needed to turn up with a quiet mind, you know. And I saw some amazing things, you know. And it was funny because we were, he's been out of hospital for 2 years now. You never know he was in hospital. And he was in the, we had to go to A&E a few weeks ago because he had a gallstone. And the A&E doctor said, oh, you got a couple of scars on your arm, what happened? And Will told him the story, and he said, okay, so what meds are you on? And he said, I'm not. And he said, well, yeah, who's your psychiatrist? And he said, I don't have one. And he said, I've never, ever, in all my years as a GP, heard of somebody coming out of a psych ward with not being on meds, you know. But what I'd seen when he was in there was that he wasn't broken, and I treated him like he wasn't broken, you know, and he was just caught up in his thinking. And eventually he saw that all the voices he was hearing in his head, he didn't need them anymore, you know. And he came out that, and he's amazing, you know. And but these things keep happening, and you look back and you think, bloody hell, how the hell did I get through that? You know, last year I had an incident where we fostered a dog that we knew very little about, a big dog. He could stand with his paws on my shoulder, and on the first night he just wouldn't settle. And long story short, he tried taking me to pieces. And I had a half an hour fight with this dog. And it was, I had no training in dogs, really, other than taking them for a walk and looking after them, sort of thing. You know, I didn't know what to do in a situation like that. But my inner wisdom kicked in. You know, yeah, I've got a few scars, a couple of broken bones, you know, but it was this amazing, ridiculously incredible force that turns up in these situations that are just so difficult. Is just incredible, absolutely incredible, and allows us to get through so much that I would never think I would be able to get through, you know. And I found out afterwards that that dog had been in a house with a woman and a 7-year-old kid before we fostered them, you know. And so I ended up finding gratitude out of the back of that, because there's probably 2 people that are still alive, and I've got a few scrapes and whatever. But luckily I have an amazing body, like we all have, and it just heals itself, you know. And just constantly amazed at this kind of magic that is within us, that helps us get through these waves that look like enormous tsunamis, right? You know, they don't look like the size of the waves you've got on the screen there, you know. They just look like these massive things that are going to take us to pieces. But we get through them with this amazingness that is out there, whatever it is, mind, whatever we're going to call it. It's very, very cool. Very cool.
That's very cool, man.
Thank you for sharing that.
I'm thankful Rusty isn't that size. He'd have been put down years ago. Okay. Bless you, Austin. Thanks so much. Let's ask a quick question. Mackie, lad, how are you feeling right now? Right now. Not. How are you feeling right now?
Absolutely fine. Thank you. Yeah, feel absolutely fine. I feel like I just rang Claire really quick, because as I say, Claire pushed us to speak because she knew I needed to somehow. And I think it was Andy came on and asked about hope.
Andy, yeah.
And I was like, shit, I've got an answer for that. And I was like, fuck, I don't want to dare admit it, but I'm back and I can listen and I'm hearing things. So yeah, I'm back, and maybe I'll re-listen to this morning, and hopefully I'll get things from people's story instead of the I wish they'd fuck off and shut the fuck up. So yeah. So my apologies for the language, but yeah, I'm back. Well, thank you.
That sounded as poetic as Lula.
Right.
Yeah, we'll have a quick break. Well, what time are we on?
We're 5 minutes early, but Elsie's on at 5, so I want to start at 5.
There's nobody with a hand up or anything like that.
So,
Kim, have you got your hand up, or are you just not taking it back down?
I haven't taken it back down yet.
Yeah.
And I think she said at the end she's going to take questions and things. So
yeah.
See you in 20 minutes.